Yo, Davie, what's going on?
Hello, hello, hello.
That's an interesting T-shirt you have on. Tell us
Well,
about
you
the
noticed
T-shirt.
that. Yes, this is the prototype for our t-shirt. I thought I'd give it, let me fix my headset one sec. There we go, out of the way now. Yes, I thought I would try it out, with our logo. Let me see, I'm not sure if the camera can see it really good. It's got the Davie P on there.
Awesome. Hey, Elevators is here, by the way.
Hello, elevators. Here we're just talking about the first of our prototype VMN tops. So yes, I had it done here in Jamaica, where I still am anyway. So I got it, the Davie P on the front, the VMN, and on the back it's got the VMN on the back as well. As you
Okay,
can
turn back
see.
around. It's getting weird.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like you're. Remember, this isn't our OnlyFans account.
Yeah, not yet.
Is it true you've got Davie P there because sometimes you get lost and you forget who you are, and people need to know who you are so they can take you home?
Yes, that too. Yes, and also just so the fans, our subscribers will get familiar to know who's who. So don't worry, I'm going to have for the other guys as well, Manny P the Duke. His one will be saying as well on there, which will be pretty cool. So I've just actually, funnily enough, I've dropped um another t-shirt off for them to make another one just like this, but with the logo and everything bigger because I didn't specify. So I think they didn't
Awesome.
realize how big I wanted it. So we'll see that one come the next podcast because I should be
Well,
collecting it tomorrow. So that will be ready for our next podcast. So let us know what y'all think. We're open for ideas, for maybe like a little, some
yes,
kind of caricature or something to go with it.
we are always open to mischief. Mischief.
Yes,
Um, so talking
yes.
about mischief, the god of mischievousness, Loki. The first episode dropped on Disney Plus yesterday.
Sorry, man,
Just
if you had to cut you, but you see how
generically,
the
how
way
do
you
you
just
think it
let
was?
that you let that float in so nicely.
Yeah, I tried. I tried.
Yeah, and it
That was a
worked.
tough one.
Thumbs up.
Thank you. Thank you. So, just straight away, like in a sentence, what did you think of the first episode?
Absolutely amazing.
I really enjoyed it too. So, shall we just kick straight off into it?
Yes,
So,
definitely. I mean,
so yeah, obviously,
how we going? Because I'm too excited. So you have to. You're gonna have
okay,
to take the wheels. Normally they
okay.
say Jesus take the wheels.
I'm liking this
Duke,
positive
you take the
energy.
wheels.
I'm
Yes.
liking this positive energy, but yeah. So the episode opens up straight away with scenes from Endgame. Loki drops down into a desert in Mongolia. He's confronted by these, I'm assuming, are Mongolian nomads, and he's just doing the normal Loki spiel to them, talking about how godly he is and whatnot. And then we see the first appearance of the TVA, the Time Variance Authority,
Yeah.
which I was excited about. And they come in and they say that he's committed crimes against not the timeline, the sacred timeline. So that
Ooh.
exactly that bears some relevance, I think, going throughout this entire series of Loki. And then yeah, they try and arrest him, and yeah, and he just gets punched in the face because they're more powerful than him. What did you make of this opening scene?
Well, it was really great. I'm just stumped for words because you just been waiting, and
Yeah,
again, this is just a testament to one great writing in general when it came to the Avengers. Just the whole level of the MCU, Avengers,
yep,
Captain America, etc., etc. Because Loki, I'm pretty sure probably when they introduced Loki into Avengers, they did not expect he would generate such a huge fan base to the point that people was craving for more appearances from Loki because that character, it was done so well that you wanted more. You didn't want it to end.
exactly.
You didn't want it to end, and it was so great, and testament again to the MCU and Disney, who's now given all these characters a platform where you don't have to wait 2 or 3 years for a movie, but you can do wonderful, great 6-part series.
Exactly. We are proper
Yeah.
fanboys. Just Elevator says as well that this was actually the first opening episode of the 3 Disney series we've had so far. I'd say that I think this set the theme better than WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier did. Also, yeah, we'll get on to DB Cooper. Mobius and Ka-Chow were awesome in this episode, I felt. And Loki watching his life, we'll get on to that later, but that was a very, very powerful scene, I felt.
Yeah, we did. Sorry to cut you, many people. Didn't we kind of speak on something like this before this started, where we're saying that we hope that he gets to get some kind of closure, with his mom, like whereas Thor got to do it in Avengers, Infinity Wars,
Endgame.
Endgame. Sorry, yes, in Endgames when he was able to, go to Asgard and actually see his mom, and she knew that he wasn't from that timeline, and he basically got the closure that he needed. And we did kind of speak saying, we hope that Loki actually gets something like that with his mom as well, because despite how he behaves, you can see he acts like he don't care, but he does. He wants acceptance from both his parents, adopted or not. He wants,
and I think, this is the theme throughout the entire episode. Loki is very much even when they're doing the therapy sessions, Loki is very much a god who wants to find out what his real identity is.
He's like a child in a sense.
Yeah,
he's like a lost
like an abandoned child.
He just wants acceptance. He's not as powerful as Thor. He's not the birth child. So it's like, and he's the youngest child. So, you've got that, that second child, the syndrome, plus the fact that he also has that baggage where
he's adopted as well.
Not right, where he knows he's not the birth child. So he's feels like, well, I'm never going to be king. Also, they don't love me as much as him. I can't fight like him. I don't really have any of his quality. I'm just me. So he just plays on what is expected, or the image that he's always portrayed, which is, as a child, I'm the mischievous child, and that gets him attention. So it seems 100%. Like he just wants to continue doing that because he knows that's the only time he will get attention, by him doing something silly that will actually, whether it be negative attention from them, but it's what he wants, which is attention.
And isn't that what people who do mischief, isn't that what they essentially want? They want attention, don't they, when they commit little acts of mischief? It's like when you've got kids in the house just doing silliness. They want attention, don't they?
Elevator's not worthy, say.
Yeah, so Elevator says, I wasn't really interested in Loki when it was announced, but in the episode when Miss Minute says Nexus branch, that got me hooked. 100%. We'll get on to Nexus, because Nexus was also mentioned in the WandaVision final episode as well, if you recall. So I think the Nexus is going to play a huge role moving forward in the MCU. So Loki's captured and he's taken to the TVA headquarters. Now, when he actually teleports into TVA headquarters, I didn't notice this on the first time watching, but I read a few articles about the show. As he comes in, they're holding the Tesseract, which they've taken from him. And if you notice, it's actually glowing bright blue. But as he comes into the headquarters, it actually becomes really dull.
Yeah.
The Tesseract.
Yeah, like it's been nullified.
Yeah. And I think it was just really cool because it was symbolizing that magic of any kind does not work in the TVA headquarters. I didn't notice that on the first watch, but luckily a few eagle-eyed YouTubers and bloggers have noticed it.
Yeah, I think, I didn't really notice that myself either. But then what I just did notice was literally like when, that funny guy, I hope he gets to see more of him, the office clerk, the one who is like, I'll gut you like a fish. And he's like, what's a fish?
Oh, yeah, he was awesome. He was awesome. Elevator says, did you see Peggy Carter in the episode? Again, I missed this bit, But again, I did read articles afterwards which did point out that Peggy Carter was in the background of one of the scenes. Additionally, I missed the scroll in the background as well. There was also a scroll being booked in when Loki was being booked in as well, which I missed. So, yeah, there was a lot going on.
I'm gonna have to watch it again. The only thing I did notice about this was that they're the ones who seems to be in charge. It's like a scroll race, those entity that's actually in charge of overseeing the whole sacred time,
Yep.
Stream, universe type of thing. Like they're the ones actually in charge of it. So it just makes you think, how powerful are these, the scroll race in general? Where did they, if that's where they ascend from, or should I say that's where they descend? I should say, sorry, not ascend.
Well, I'll probably cover this now. So, obviously, we've got the Eternals movie coming up.
Yeah.
And the Eternal movie features the Celestials, who are obviously like the civilization builders of the universe, and they decide which civilizations deserve to live and which civilizations deserve to die. They're not nice people for me, but hey ho, they do what they do. And essentially, in the comics, they kind of touch upon that the Celestials kind of fueled the war between the Skrulls and the Kree as a kind of genetics arm race. By making them fight, they were kind of trying to improve both races by kind of having a survival of the fittest thing going on. So the Skrulls are a very powerful race. Obviously, they can shape shift as well, which is extremely useful. They could be anywhere in the MCU. You could be a Skrull, and I don't know.
You got me.
If you did actually change your appearance, I'd just be. I think.
Boom.
I think I'll probably just run out of here, cry my eyes out.
No, because then on the plus side, I'd call a few of my Skrull friends and be like, "Yes, like and subscribe." Skrulls are taking over.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to fish out some of my Secret Invasion comics so I can show you the Skrull adverts they used to have in those comics because they were amazing. But yeah, Loki's booked in, and I'm loving like the old school tech in the building, kind of like the almost like 70s vibe of everything.
Yeah. The office, the whole, the kind of office setting, and it's like vintage, like even when he was, trying to make his way to see the, basically like the judge, and he had to get like a ticket, and he had to go all around the tents and barriers. He couldn't cut the line, and it's like there's no one else here or whatever. It was just absolutely great. And I mean, again, it's just a great testament to how Marvel does things, where they're actually able to incorporate humor even into something where it's quite deep as well, and it doesn't overshadow or seem out of place. It goes, it's perfectly balanced and blended. So it's just like, it's just like, wow.
100%. But yeah, so the Tesseract's taken into custody. He signs off his paper. I love the bit when like they give him the paperwork and they say like, sign this and to confirm that this is everything you've said ever. And then he says something. I think he says this is absurd, and then they give him like another bit of paper that says this is absurd.
He said two. Yeah, then he said something about what, and then that. Yeah, he said what first. That came out, and then he said something else, and then when he saw it was actually legit, he just didn't say anything else. He just signed away, and then that was it or whatever. But it was absolutely genius the way they done all of that, and it just makes you think like, what, how powerful are some of these beings in the universe that, like you said, in a place like that, magic, literally seems like all
they can nullify it. They can nullify it.
Yeah,
and we'll get onto that a bit later as well. But so yeah, I'm just reading my notes. Apologies. Then he's got to walk through this like metal detector, which will determine whether he's a robot or not. And I loved it that Loki was genuinely like, I don't know if I am a robot or not. And again, I think this alludes to what you were saying earlier about how he's a god trying to find an identity. He's so kind of confused about who he is. He's not even 100% sure if he's like corporeal or if he's actually a robot.
Yeah, because he's never, even though now he's found out about, that he was from the ice giants, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
That he still doesn't know much about their history or their physiology or anything. What he's capable of. I mean, literally, it wasn't until when he grabbed that, what was that thing that he grabbed, and then he turned, his skin started to change and he was becoming blue
Oh
like
yeah, I
them.
forgot.
And
I know what you mean. I forgot what it
yeah,
was.
that it wasn't until when that happened that he realized, his skin depends where he was. He could obviously change his skin to go back to that of his heritage. So he does not have an identity in terms of knowing where he's from, which also in turns shows with how he behaves, because when you're like completely lost, you don't know what you are. I mean, it's crazy just being a normal person anyway when you're around
Yep.
your birth family and you're going through puberty or whatever it is, and you're trying to figure out your own identity. That's bad enough as it is. Now, can you imagine being the son of the god of literally a god, Odin the god, and you don't have your brother's physical attributes, you can't fly, you don't have his strength, you can just like kind of shape shift and
Yeah, your brother's got
create
such a better
illusions.
hairline than you as well.
Yeah, you can
Like
just
your
literally
widow's
shape
peaking
shift.
really badly, and Thor's got the straight on like hairline going on. Sorry,
Yeah,
Tom Hiddleston.
the only thing you seem to have over him is you seem to be like you could actually be a great master strategist in terms of battle. You're very intelligent that way if you take your ego out of it.
Yeah, if
If
he
you
takes his
can
ego
go
out of it.
around with this god complex, like I am the god and you are this or that, he would have actually defeated the Avengers because he's smarter than Tony Stark, all of them.
Yeah, but it's
But
always his own
it's
hubris that
his
gets in his way.
yes, because he can't win or can't do his thing without getting a few jabs in and letting you know that he is the smartest one in the room. And yes, this is what I'm going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it, type of
Yeah,
thing.
with
Which,
Loki, it's never the mission that's most important. It's always him that's most
yeah,
important. But then that's touched upon later as well. But then we have probably one of my favorite bits from the episode. I'm going to bring up this comment again from Elevators about the Nexus. So Miss Minutes comes on screen, this great cartoon clock, who I think is going to be the secret star of the series. I don't know about you, but she
yeah,
gives this
yeah,
great cartoon about how there used to be all these different timelines, and then the timekeepers kind of funneled all of the timelines into one.
but sorry, Manipi, that Miss
Mhm.
Minute, it seems like she's actually a living like like a living entity, because you notice
That's
that
a
she didn't say anything until when Loki asked a question. Then like she responded to him directly and
that's
started
actually a good point. I
explaining.
never considered. I guess like all of the beings in the TVA are creations of some kind. So why couldn't a animated clock be an actual real living thing as
Yeah,
well?
because what they don't need to have, like automated robots or whatever inside there, for that sacred place. I think for that to run as out smooth as it's run, it's living beings they've got inside there that's doing whatever. So, I think it was because it's just the way it interacted. It didn't give like a generic answer. It's
No.
like it answered his question when he was asking, saying, "Well, how the hell did I do it?" And then it started explaining, well, this is what happened, and then
Yep.
it's showing it, it's breaking it down in a simplistic way, with like the cartoon imagery showing you, well, if you had stayed on this part, XYZ, you would have been fine, but because you snuck out and you went there, you disrupted this, and you so maybe, I don't know, I might be wrong, but it seems like it could possibly be alive, not just like an automated system that's giving information.
Yeah. So, but they tell this great story about how there was this great battle between all the timelines, and eventually we did get our sacred timeline, which is the MCU timeline, which we're experiencing right now. I don't know if that means the timeline me and you are living in. That means we're not on the sacred timeline. I don't know if that's the case. Would make a lot of sense though.
But if it's all merged, wouldn't everything be now technically be inside that time,
That's
inside the
essentially
sacred
what
timeline?
they're
You
saying.
might have your own timeline, but it's still within that.
Yeah, it's essentially. And again, I'm still confused as well about whether, because they do actually use the word multiverse as well. Miss Minutes does,
Yeah.
to say there was a multiverse war.
Yeah,
So
that's what they
I'm
did
still
say. Yeah.
confused as to whether a different timeline constitutes a different universe. For me, I think that's still something they need to kind of explain away a bit.
Well, I'm sure it said if you strayed off your path, and
Yeah,
depends where you go, it could create an alternative universe. But
yeah.
I think it
So
depends on the damage that you've done. If it's just like a little thing, then, like, for instance, with the whole event, like what they're saying, which is why Loki was in trouble, this is how I'm interpreting it. Loki was going to be punished because what he done was a severe act. It wasn't just a minor breach. Whereas what the Avengers done was basically not a severe breach, because what they done was they were supposed to do it, as in it was supposed to go that way. But Loki's story, as is now, wasn't supposed to go that way. It was supposed to go how we saw it in the movies, which is he's going to get killed by Thanos. That's the end of his journey. Thor continues on XYZ, but because he's escaped, he's now creating a new timeline because he's now breached that one. He's now exited from that. So what
yeah,
should have happened has not happened.
yeah, and yeah, that's another good point. In the comics, there is a story called the Secret Wars, which is exactly about a multiverse battle, but that's more about the universes forced into being combined into one timeline, and then suddenly you got all the different like Marvel universes all like in the same timeline. So you've got like the Old Man Logan universe in there. You've got like that weird Hulk universe, which I'll tell you about later because it's weird. Universe being in there, and all these different universes just basically combining into one. So it feels as though the TVA is very much. It feels as though like that's already happened, maybe, or maybe they're trying to. Yeah, but it feels like they're trying to stop it expanding back out. It feels,
Yeah.
but
But didn't they say something like that happened once before,
yeah,
where it nearly
yeah. So there's already
destroyed?
been,
So and now it's, yeah. So this is hence why they were created, to
yeah.
prevent that happening again.
So it feels as though almost like the Secret Wars has already happened at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope it's something they get more into. But this is opening up possibilities for all kinds of different types of cosmic beings to come into play, such as eternity, who's just basically eternity. Exactly what it says on the tin. It's eternity. It's the universe we live inside. Actually, has a godly form as well.
Yeah.
The living tribunal. That sound. Sorry, I didn't say that properly at all. But the living tribunal. I still can't say it properly. That's just basically like the judge of the universe and decides like on the ultimate kind of crimes in the universe. Chaos and Order, which I think got a mention in Miss Minutes' little cartoon in the Timekeepers as well. Got to mention. So I'm hoping that we, not necessarily through Loki, but eventually through the Eternals and Doctor Strange and all that stuff, I'm hoping that we see kind of like these bigger questions about the universe being asked. And Celestials. Can't forget Celestials. And Galactus. Can't forget Galactus.
Yeah, I think we might some point see Galactus, because I'm sure I was reading something that I think they are going to be making a new Silver Surfer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. But Galactus is going to kind of be a like a being from the universe before this one. So you know how this universe began, for example, with the Big Bang.
Yeah.
Galactus is meant to be a being from the universe before
Oh,
the Big Bang.
before the Big Bang. So he's
Yeah,
from the previous era.
yeah. So yeah, Galactus is a pretty powerful dude. Pretty powerful dude. But yeah, I just thought that was amazing. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of like the history and all that before we move on?
Well, it's interesting what the TVA, what that judge lady was saying, that
Hmm.
basically when Loki was questioning, so well, who's to say, how did I break it? Well, we decide, and who tells you to decide? And they're like, well, we get told by, the big three who created us, basically what is a breach and what isn't. Which I thought was interesting because when he was talking about, remember when he was talking about the Avengers, when he said, well, technically the Avengers, they broke, they're the ones who caused me to do this because they're the ones who came back in time and
Yeah,
did X, Y, Z. And they're like, well, no, they were fine to do that, but you weren't supposed to leave from there. You were supposed to go through that. And he was questioning like why is it that they could do it and that wasn't an issue, but I do
yeah,
it? And her response was like, well, because they were supposed to, I'm told that's what they were supposed to do, whereas you weren't supposed to do it. So it's like there isn't necessarily a black and white as to what is a breach and what isn't. It's more along the lines of what the big three, the TVA's bosses decide is a breach, they will consider a breach, even
yeah.
though you and I could have done the same thing, because technically the Avengers breached things by going back in
Well, I
time.
was thinking about Captain America going back in time and deciding to
Yeah,
live the life with Peggy
live a
Carter.
life that he didn't have, which didn't
Yeah,
exist technically. So it's no different to what Loki has done,
but
because
it makes me
Loki done
wonder
the
that
exact. Yeah,
maybe Captain America and Peggy Carter were always meant to live that life together.
right. But the fact that he went in a different timeline, which he's then corrupted and changed, because it's not like when he went back to his timeline all traces of what he done in the future disappeared. No, everyone still had memories of what he done.
Maybe, like the big mystery about where Captain America is, maybe he isn't on the moon. Maybe he's actually in TVA custody.
Probably true, yes. And they've got him
I'm
in a
joking,
room.
but there could be some
No,
element of
probably,
truth.
yeah, they got him in a room, with one of those
Yeah,
device over his head. And in his mind, he's thinking, yeah, I'm back in time, I'm doing this. But really and truly,
yeah,
he's in prison. He's in
yeah,
TVA
hundred
prison
percent,
for eternity.
100%. I was joking about it, but the more I think about it, I'm thinking, actually, maybe that could be where he is. Actually, maybe he is in TVA custody somewhere.
Yep. Doing hard time.
Yeah, or maybe like Shield and Sword know about it, but they're like, well, nothing we can do about that. They're a lot more powerful than us, so we're not going to get involved.
Yeah, but then they would even probably know these people exist because
Yeah, true.
I think these guys only let you know they exist if they want to know, if they want you to know. Because if you look at it, it seems like whenever they go back in time and they do something, they have those like,
But like
I'll
Men in
call them
Black
for,
style, they
yeah, like, yeah,
erase
I'll call
memories
those
and stuff.
things time bombs. Like they got these kind of time bombs that they set off, which will then erase everything that's happened, and you would have no memory of anything ever happening because technically it didn't happen.
Yeah.
They came
So
in, rewrote time as it should have been without, before things got out of hand, what shouldn't have happened.
they do the bit. So he queues up the ticket. The guy who lost his ticket or refused to hand over his ticket just got erased from time, it seems, and that made Loki think, "Oh yeah, I better actually do as they say and get my ticket," which I thought was quite funny. Not for the guy who got erased from time. It wasn't funny for him. I just want to say, feel bad
But
for
did he
him.
really get erased from time, or did they just send him back to the timeline of where he would have been before he broke the
I
rule?
think he was erased from time.
So will that mean that's the interesting thing? Will that mean that there won't be any trace of him?
Yeah.
These people he wouldn't have existed.
So they actually do this story in the She-Hulk comics. where She-Hulk actually goes to the TVA in the exact same way. They accuse her of messing up a timeline, and they threaten her with being erased from time altogether. It's actually Mobius who doesn't the same name who saves Loki. So,
Oh, so he's the one who saved She-Hulk as well in the comics?
yeah, in the comics, yeah, I think they've kind of transplanted some of that She-Hulk story onto Loki.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was just really cool. All of that stuff. So yeah, he goes front the judge, and then Mobius comes forward and says, "Well, no, I'm going to use Loki." And there's a bit of a mystery as to why Mobius wants to save Loki. Interestingly, I think I've mentioned this before, but Mobius, the guy's name. Remember when Tony Stark is working out how to travel back through time?
Yeah.
He calls it a Mobius loop, doesn't he?
Oh, I
If
didn't
you
know that.
rewatch it, if you rewatch Endgame,
Yeah.
and he's saying, "Oh, like you're trying to work out all the physics and stuff of how to create like a time machine," and he says, "Oh, make it a Mobius loop," and suddenly it works.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting.
so I don't know whether like all of these beings in the TVA are kind of like aspects of time turned into flesh. I'm not a quantum physicist, so I don't know exactly what the term, if the term Mobius actually means anything.
And we'll have to Google that for next time, for next week.
100%.
Find
Yeah,
out. Find.
I'll do a bit more digging into that.
But something I was just thinking about. You were just talking about Captain America, and
Mhm.
technically, what Captain America has done. Captain America is from this. He would have been from the 30s, 40s, because he was before World War II, correct?
What do you mean? So he
His
crashed his
origin,
plane into the ice during World War Two.
yeah. Now, either he would have been technically dead, or if for him to survive, what if it was the TVA that actually done that purposely
Well,
for him to actually be able
the
to come forward in this? Think about it. He could have been found at any time within that time. Like
in,
he could have been found 70s, 80s, 90s. He wasn't found until when he was found, which was in the 2000s,
in the
just
in the
before the
com-
whole
so
invasion happened.
so in the comics he survives because in the ice because essentially the super soldier serum keeps him alive in the ice. But no, the TV. But I think what you're alluding to is I think you're onto something. I think the TVA might be saying that if providing they are okay with him having gone back in time, that actually he was always meant to live out that life with Peggy Carter. That was
Yeah, so
always meant to be his
maybe
destiny.
right, but maybe they probably figured like, they will need him in the future to help stop that because they won't really get involved, hands-on involved
Yeah,
to stop the Thanos because the fact that as we saw in that episode that like the Tesseract, those kind of things did not work inside there. At any
Tesseract.
point they could have gone back. It was that, wasn't it?
You said Tesseract.
What is it?
Tesseract.
Tet.
TES. Yeah,
Yeah, Tesseract. What did I said Tet.
yeah.
TET. Yes. They could have technically gone back in time at any point and collected each of those Infinity Stones and brought it inside the TVA office where it's just headquarters, where it's just like we all saw, paperweight,
Well,
you know?
yeah, exactly. A
So
paper.
unless they wanted him to actually do that, for a bigger purpose, they would have allowed him to actually survive, go into the future, do what was needed, and then brought him back to his time. Because the fact that we see that they're able to rewrite time and put people back into the original space to not corrupt the timeline, then they could have brought him back the moment he woke up.
Yeah, yeah. It's a
So unless they purposely done that, because obviously they see everything that's going on and happening, they wanted that to happen the way it did.
yeah. It seems that way to me. And as well, you got to remember as well, the scene from two scenes from Endgame, when Thanos says, "I am inevitable," and again when Thanos witnesses himself being um, killed by Thor in Endgame, as he's watching like Nebula's like memory banks of it,
Yeah,
and he says that's destiny fulfilled. So that says that even what Thanos was doing was meant to happen.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah, Thanos clicking and killing off half the population of the universe. That was actually all part of the master plan in some way, shape, or form.
yeah, for them. So they actually, which is kind of, it's kind of messed up when you actually think about that. It's
I
like
know,
they
right?
literally they used Thanos' pain to actually do their dirty work, and the only reward he got was death. Literally, he got labeled, he's going to be forever known in history as the man who wiped out half the galaxy, and then he's dead.
I
When
know, right? This is
literally he didn't want that. All he wanted was for people to not suffer like what he grew up witnessing. So again, these people are able to see, or these beings are able to see everything that's happening throughout time, which means they knew exactly what was going to be happening, and they chose to do that on purpose.
it's actually a huge philosophical debate we could have around this because it's kind of almost saying, well, some wars are kind of had to happen and stuff like that. It's actually like you could take this stream of thought into so many different directions. Am I keeping you up?
No, you're not. I'm just super excited. Yes.
Um, but we could take this all kinds of directions. But yeah, I think it does leave a lot of food for thought. Actually, all of these characters maybe aren't in control of their destiny, and their destiny's already been written out for them.
Yeah, by these the TVA bosses,
Well, not
the
yeah,
big bosses of the
the
TVA, because they are
the
the ones who's sitting there and
well the timekeepers.
deciding, yeah, the timekeepers, who's doing what that's okay, who's doing what that they think is a breach, and if you do it, if they feel like it, they will erase you from time. Because if you go on the theory by what they're saying, when you do crimes against time or whatever they want to call it, they could have at any point arrested Thanos, like they did Loki and everyone else, brought him there, and they could have erased him from time if they'd wanted to. Unless, like we just said, that was meant to happen. They wanted all of that to happen.
Yeah, I remember as well. Maybe as well the Avengers were left alone because the Ancient One explained to the Incredible Hulk how important it is not to make all these different timelines. When Hulk went to go and get
Yeah,
the
the
Infinity
time
Stone off of
stone.
the Ancient One in New York. Yeah, so maybe she actually like done them a favor by saying, "Look, it's really important that you don't make any alternate timelines. You replace all the stones back where you found them." Without knowing it, she might have saved them from some kind of TVA justice.
But it's interesting also, if you notice, that they let someone who will have that deep level of understanding and wisdom to be in control of that stone out of all the stones. Because remember, when you about the ancient one, you don't know exactly how old the ancient one is, because they've had that stone, and with that stone, they could technically live outside time.
Yeah,
So they don't age or whatever. So how long did they have that stone? And the fact that they were living outside time, they didn't age as a normal human would have, which would have been to whatever lifespan and then die. Again, it's like that's something that the timekeeper was okay with allowing. So it's like, it's quite strange. You don't know what is, like I said, it's not black and white with them. it's like they pick and choose what is black and white and what isn't, and what's gray and what's okay and what isn't.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. And talking again, actually, you mentioned again, what you said just reminded me of the Nexus, which was mentioned earlier. So the Nexus is kind of like it's kind of like a place that exists outside of time,
Mm.
so to speak. And in the comics, Wanda Maximoff is considered to be a Nexus being, which means that she's a being that kind of exists outside of the timeline. And the Nexus was mentioned in Miss Minutes' cartoon as well. So, yeah, I think essentially what we're going to see is maybe a few more powerful Nexus beings coming into play who are so powerful that they can actually exist outside of time. Which then brings me on to another point. So the judge during Loki's trial, whose name has totally escaped me, and I forgot to write it down. She's actually in the comics the lover of a villain called Kang the Conqueror.
Oh, I thought she and Mobius had something going on because
Yeah, that's why I
it
got. They
looked
did
like,
kind of drop a hint there. They can't drop a hint,
yeah,
but
when he's like, oh, something like, looking up at you type of thing, that kind of innuendo that he threw out there.
in the comics, she's royalty as well. She's part of the TVA, but she's also royalty. So maybe it was a reference to her being royalty as
Nah,
opposed.
that didn't sounded like, yes, Your Highness. That sounded like, oh yeah, girl, I love looking up at you type of thing. Like, it just sounded quite,
Yeah, it sounded like that to me as well. It sounded like they may have had
yeah,
some history, but yeah. So Kang is kind of like a villain. He's a time villain essentially. He's also goes by the name Immortus as well. They're essentially the same being, but yeah, he's essentially like a time villain. I'll be honest, I don't find Kang's stories very interesting in the comics. I usually just skim read over them.
yeah,
But Kang is going to be the main villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum Mania. So I fully trust the MCU to make Kang interesting for me.
yeah. There's a few interesting. I mean, like from even what I read with the upcoming Eternals, that one of the characters that we'll see inside their child is going to grow up to be what's his name, Nomad, who's going to be the enemy for the protagonist in what's it called, Black Panther 2.
No worries, bro. Happy to have you back.
Welcome back. Yeah, he's going to be in Black Panther 2.
That's cool.
But they're saying you're going to see him as a child in the Eternals
Okay,
upcoming film.
that's going to be pretty cool. But the Eternals is going to be great as well because the Eternals spans like I think it's like 6 or 7 thousand years worth of human history. That's how long the movie spans for. So a lot of this kind of connection to like these universal beings, these cosmic beings, I think is going to be referenced in the Eternals. Anyway, I
Yeah,
think
it
we
looks
should
amazing.
persevere.
Just from the, yeah, I know we're kind of digressing, but just from that, the trailer that we've seen, it looks like it's going to be another blockbuster.
Oh, it looks like it's going to be
Fi-
epic.
Yeah, fingers crossed, everything will be open up for people to go out and enjoy in the cinema. But if everything goes well and, to the theaters, it looks like it's going to be another huge blockbuster. And it's going to open so many doors, like we're saying, for so many other things. So again, looking forward to that. But yeah, it's all about Loki now. Sorry, Loki. See, even in this, which is supposed to be about Loki, we're talking about other things. Poor Loki can't even get a break,
Oh,
even on his
it's all connected, isn't it?
stream.
Because Loki is killed by Thanos. Thanos is the first cousin of Athena, who's in the Eternals. So it's all connected.
Ah,
Um, it's all connected. Don't worry about it. It's all connected. Then actually, after this scene with the judge, it's actually when we get the intro credits, which was like 20 minutes
Yeah,
or something into the show, which I thought was kind of awesome. Like all of this was just build up for what was about to come.
but I thought they did a little one to begin with when it was starting. And I'm thinking, oh
Yeah,
yeah, it started, and then like literally like 20 minutes in, then I'm seeing it starting over, and I'm like, have I missed something, or is this really starting in like now? But I mean, that was quite unique the way they did that. I'm not complaining. I enjoyed it.
yeah, 100%. And obviously, like the way uh the different fonts for the way Loki is spelt keeps on changing, which kind of indicates all the different types of Lokis.
Yeah,
There
just
might be
like
out
what
there.
we actually discussed on the Loki podcast that we did
Yeah,
a little while ago. So again, great analogies that we used in predictions, which seems to be coming to pass.
yeah. To be fair, I read that one somewhere, so I can't really claim that as my own personal prediction. But hey ho.
Well, see, well done,
Um.
Duke. At least you're honest with it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you now, if Wanda Maximoff ends up um being in Wundagore Mountain, that's my prediction, and I'm claiming
Yeah.
that one. Um, have you guys watched Agents of Shield? Because there was a hint to Loki. I have seen Agents of Shield to the end. They do mention Loki, which is interesting as well when because after this bit actually links in nicely elevators because
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because Mobius then takes Loki for his kind of therapy session, and you see Loki killing Agent Coulson, don't you?
Well, is it a therapy session, or is it kind of like a this is your life slash a therapy session? Because it's more like this is your life, this is what you've done, all the things you've done,
I think it
the
was both. I
incidents.
think it was both.
Yeah.
Elevators. I'd be interested to know your opinion on this as well. Can Marvel's Agents of Shield still be considered as Marvel canon? Because there's a bit of a debate as to whether it's actually considered part of the MCU. One of my friends explained to me that they had a storyline at the end which basically shifted them onto a different timeline. But then if they're canon, then the TVA should be upset with them going onto a different timeline. Or maybe we're going to see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pop up at some point in the MCU again to address this. I don't know. It's very confusing.
Well, we have to wait for the time watchers or whatever they call themselves,
The timekeepers.
timekeepers, to decide if they want to put them back in or if they don't.
Yeah, yeah. It's not
They
Kevin
seem,
Feige. It's actually the timekeepers who
yeah,
decide.
literally, they seem to be the big bosses now, who's just saying, who does what. It's okay and it's not. I mean, it's, I mean, as it's that, I mean, I have to wait till we get to that section of the, the discussion to say, but just seeing how it ends, I already have my view and where I will stand
Yeah,
in terms of the right and wrong.
yeah. I think the early seasons could be considered canon, but when they bring the Darkhold in, that's when Agents of Shield diverts. When it diverts, yeah, I'd go with that as well because the Darkhold features in Agents of Shield and it features in One Division as well, and they both look entirely different. Though in the comics, they do say that the two books can change appearance, but no, I think that's a good shout. Agents of Shield is very good though, David. If you haven't watched it,
You know what? I watched a few of the episodes back in the day, but because it wasn't on Sky, so it wasn't something where I could, sorry, elevator. Sky is our cable company in the UK, so it's not like it was on there where I could then, like set my recorder to record all, the series,
yeah,
so I could then watch it because it was more on standard TV because it used to come on Channel 4.
okay.
So
So
you didn't really have that option, but I think it should be on the Disney.
It is on Disney Plus.
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna have a look
Half of
when we
season
finish.
one is really bad. The first half of season one is really bad, and then something happens midway through the season that just makes it really good. I won't spoil anything for you. And then by I'd say between seasons 3 to 5, some of the best best TV of its era
Yeah.
in that time, during that period, it was really
So
really good. So I
how many
definitely
seasons is
recommend
there for it?
7 or 8.
Oh, and
You can
then
just
it's
have
completely finished.
it's completely finished now. We've got a
Okay,
proper
oh,
ending
that's
and
good.
everything. And they also link it into Peggy Carter as well. So the Peggy Carter series also um, comes into it, and Peggy Carter gets her own series as well for a season. Yeah, when Hydra get involved, it gets good. Yeah, 100%.
I'll definitely check that out.
Because if Agents of Shield suddenly do pop up again in the MCU, it's going to be worth knowing the backstory behind it. Because it is really good TV, but yeah, it just gets a bit confusing as to whether it's canon or not. But yeah, so Loki's Dave Mobius, and then he manages to escape Mobius. Then you have that great scene where he threatens to gut that guy like a fish, and the guy's like, "What's a fish?
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty funny.
What is a fish, Davian? You tell me."
Uh, well, it depends what planet you're from, isn't it? For us, from the Earth, it's a
It's an aquatic
delicacy that
life
one can
form
enjoy. Yes, an aquatic life form that you can
with
get in
with a
the UK
backbone.
at your chip shop with some chips. In Brighton you can get it, the old fish and chips. That is a fish. It is a wonderful, wonderful traditional British dish
It is
in
indeed.
the
It is indeed.
UK. So yes, that is fish.
It is indeed. It is indeed. But and then he gets the guy to give him the tesseract. How do you describe a fish? Oh yeah, a an aquatic animal with a backbone, which has scales and gills.
I think that would have been that they should have they kind of dropped the ball on that one. They should have let Loki at least try and spend a few seconds trying
Yeah,
to explain it to the
yeah.
guy.
He's got
Yeah,
gills
so
and
basically a fish, it swims in, you know what water is, right? Yes, I know what water is. It's land or water. Okay, so a fish is in the water. There are
they
some places you could find some on the land, but not without a little water, and it
they prob
moves like this.
they probably missed. You're probably right. They probably missed the comedic trick there, because I think Tom Hiddleston could have pulled that off really well, trying to explain what a fish was. That could have been really good, actually. But hey ho, maybe somebody will watch this and go, "You guys should be writers for the MCU."
Yes.
um,
Definitely, we will do. Especially your knowledge of the comic book, Marvel comics overall. Elevator is not worthy. This guy is an absolute library when it comes to information on Marvel stuff. The
thank you,
Duke
thank you,
Manny P is
thank you.
a
I
is,
do
but it's
have.
a fact.
No, I
It's a
have huge
fact.
gaps. I do have huge gaps though in my knowledge, because I did stop collecting in the past decade. So a lot of the more recent stuff I haven't got a clue about.
Right, but we're talking, 20, 25 years ago, when we're going to school,
Yeah.
literally, you had all the information, everything,
So kind of
wanted to know
like
about X-Men, you tell me stuff, so you know your stuff. So
my period is probably 85 to 2005. That 20-year period is probably the period which I'm most knowledgeable about. But beyond that, yeah, I do struggle with the more recent stories, I have to say, and I don't like some of the more recent stories, I have to say as well, because I do think we're getting a bit off topic here, but I do think that Chris Claremont, I went to a Comic Con with him. I'll quickly cover it, and he said how he wrote the X-Men from the late 70s into the 80s into the 90s, and he is
yeah,
very much the guy responsible for making the X-Men like the best superhero team ever. I think we can all agree that's true. Elevators, I
100%.
think we can
Yeah,
agree the X-Men are the greatest ever superhero
of
team.
course.
And it's all down to Chris Claremont. He took over that comic, took it to new levels. And he said, like, when he stopped writing for X-Men, like new younger writers would come in, and some of them would just like take one of his characters and then just give them like an entirely different personality and kind of like value core to the one he had. So he's reading these comics and he's like, well, the Gambit I wrote would never do this. The Rogue I wrote would never do this. You know, Professor X that I wrote wouldn't necessarily have a crush on a 16-year-old Jean Grey. I'm not saying he said that, but
Yeah, but no, I get what you're saying. I get
yeah,
what they should have done. They should have had some kind of creative control
yeah, some kind
where,
of more editorial.
yeah, so basically, even when they leave, whoever is taking over, they have a certain guideline that they have to go by in terms of the character of do's and don'ts, what they cannot do. Does not matter what generation you're appealing to, you can still make the character great. I mean, you look at someone like a Batman. I know we're talking about a DC character, but you look at Batman. Batman, even throughout the ages, Batman does not change. He's
So
still the same in terms of, his what his do's and don'ts are in terms of, like, Batman would never kill, that type of thing. He doesn't. When they do go off and branch off, they do it in a well artistic way, in the sense they'll say, this is Batman from this universe, or
yeah,
XYZ. So it's not what you used to, so you know that there's a difference. Whereas, like you're saying, the way they're actually rewriting these characters now, you know, it's ruining the essence of that character. And
yeah,
then
for
what it
me, some of
does,
them, yeah. Don't get me wrong,
trying
you
to
still
bring
get.
in yeah, trying to bring in new fans, you're going to lose your core fans who grew up on those characters
Well,
because
this is part of the issue. So I genuinely believe that Marvel writers should not write comics for me. I'm 40 years old. Do not write comics for me. Write comics for people aged between 15 to 30 years old, because I've kind of had my time. And, for me, nothing is ever going to be better than that period of 85 to 2005. Actually, a bit beyond, actually. Nothing, nothing's ever going to be so. They've kind of had me in that respect. And don't get me wrong, I think they should be writing stories for that kind of younger age group. But
yeah.
yeah, maybe I'm just a curmudgeonly old man now who's just like looking back to his younger years thinking, oh, it was so much better in my day. But so in the 80s as well, something they used to do was, for example, if in the fourth story he had a really big um, story arc going on in Asgard, he would be written out of the Avengers comics for the period in which he's in Asgard.
Yeah.
But then, like, at some point, they just stopped doing stuff like that. There was a point where Wolverine was in 4 or 5 different comics, all at the same time in like different parts of the planet. And it's like you're reading it; they're decent stories, but it's like there's no way he
Yeah, it
can be
makes
doing.
those.
They
Yeah,
just,
where was the TVA when
yeah.
all this, was going on? Like,
Well,
how
word
can
of
dude be,
TVA.
yeah, how can dude be in London, Birmingham, and Manchester all at the
Yeah,
same time?
yeah, and maybe it took me out of it a bit, and I think that's when I started to think, well, I used to like the fact that Marvel used to take that bit of extra care and attention to,
Yeah,
say, well, this character is in this place right now, so there's no way they can appear in this comic right now.
and then it
Um,
makes it awesome when they come back because you'll
yeah,
have, like, return of Wolverine or something like that. So you made that issue will sell even more because he's coming back. You know that a lot has happened while he's been away, what he's been doing,
and
and
nice.
also in the sense of what where he's not been, a lot has happened there. So it's like, you now he's returned. You're gonna have that filler where you find out what's gone on when he was away and what also he's been up to, and it kind of bridges the gap there. But like you're saying, when he's in everything at the same time, it doesn't, it takes away. It's kind of like the kayfabe. You take away the kayfabe from it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
remove away the veil and you just make it not okay. Yeah, so it's a comic. So because it's not real, he can be in 16 different comics at the same time, fighting 16 villains at the same time.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it just took me out of it. It just like because like Marvel used to do things like when the character came back, the Avengers would be like, "Oh, Thor, you're back," and then there'll be like a little box on the side saying, "Oh, if you want to find out what happened to Thor and what he was up to, check out Thor 362 to 364." And then that
yeah,
would make you want to, go and buy those comics to find out what had happened to him. So
it's true, which is great for that comic because they get sales because
yeah,
people are going to be looking forward to that issue, those issues.
but then what happened was because Hugh Jackman had become so famous as Wolverine, I think Marvel kind of took on this. Sorry, totally digressed here, but Marvel kind of took on this thing where it's like, well, people love Wolverine, so we've got to have Wolverine in every single comic because that will sell. And me, like a sucker, was buying every single comic Wolverine in it because obviously Wolverine's my favorite character from like the
Yeah,
80s
that's just
when I was
milking
like
the
8 years
character. It's
old.
all about, yeah, that's just milking the character. It's kind of like what they do when you have some of the, like our famous games that we love, and then they go and give it to these studios who butcher those wonderful games by trying to turn them into movies.
Movies, yeah,
But it's all about the money, just because
absolutely.
oh, this will sell, so they do it. So they don't take that extra time and care to preserve the legacy
Legacy is a good
and
word.
the
Yeah,
damage, yeah, and the damage to the legacy of that brand because
and
that character is a brand.
and you
Even
know,
though Wolverine is part of X-Men, Wolverine himself is also a brand because
yeah,
everyone knows Wolverine, just like the X-Men. So those brand needs to be protected, and I think, like you're saying, they should do more to prevent certain things from happening. Overexertion of those
they need they,
characters.
they need more editorial control. Essentially, they need to. But the thing is, this sells though. So this is I don't know. I guess this is what comics is in the year 2021. But yeah, I'm just being old and curmudgeonly. But when Wolverine died, I was glad because I thought, God, you've put this guy through enough.
Yeah.
Like, just let him die for a bit and let him come back. Anyway, Loki, he he tries to
Sorry,
he gets back.
Loki, we digressed again, yeah? Taken
We
away from your shine, and this should be about you.
yeah, again, this is why Loki is so angry with the world. Um, he finds the Tesseract and it's not working, and then he opens up a drawer. There's like about 10 Infinity Stones in this drawer, and the guy's like,
It
"Oh, we
was
got
more than
loads of."
that. It was
Might have
more,
been
and it
more
was
than
a
that. Might have
lot
been
of the
more.
same. Yeah, you could see like
Yeah.
multiple version of the same Infinity Stone, like the
And I
green ones. You saw loads.
and I think there might have been other like Marvel trinkets of power in there as well,
Yeah,
which I'll try and identify, or I'm sure somebody else will identify, and I'll just read their article about it. But, actually, I'll do that. I'll just wait for somebody else to do it. But and that's when and the guy says, "Oh, we used them as paperweights." That's when Loki realizes I have zero power here. If these guys use the Infinity Stones as paperweights,
paper.
how?
Yeah, literally. So I think that's
Yeah,
what killed him when the guy says, "Oh yeah, we got loads of those." Some. He's like, "Yeah, but most of the time people use it for, we use it for paperweight here." And he's just
and
thinking,
that's
this is the most powerful thing in the universe, and it's a paperweight in the office.
yeah, and I think that's the bit
For a
when
guy who
Loki.
doesn't know what a fish is.
Yeah, and that's the bit where Loki realizes actually I've got no hope here because if these
Yeah.
guys don't think Infinity Stones are that powerful, yeah, I've got no power here whatsoever. So yeah,
And this is my
I've been
dream. Yeah, I think that's the main thing as well. He's like, because he was thinking that he's in a nightmare or something, like, yeah, I'm just dreaming, I'll wake up. And when he realizes it's not a dream and the Infinity Stones ain't exactly nothing big to these kind of people,
yeah
it's just like, oh, that's cute.
yeah, and then then he goes back to his room to watch the rest of his life. But missed that two things that happened. Missed that two things that happened. After the intro, it starts off with a scene of the TVA in France in 1549. And
Yeah,
for future episodes, make sure you get some sleep before you get on it.
I will, definitely. It's
I
the
don't know
time
what's happened.
difference.
You stopped wearing a vest, which is good, and now you've just started yawning throughout the episode. And if it's not one thing, it's another. This will be again reflected in your monthly
My
appraisal.
income, my wage, yes.
Yeah, and it turns out that there's something going around murdering the TVA peeps. And then again, we see that kind of demon in the stained glass windows, which actually turns out to be Loki. It wasn't Mephisto. Haha. Oh, and they told the stories about how Loki was actually DB Cooper. I thought that was quite cute.
Yeah, but the the good Loki, as in
Yeah,
just the normal Loki who
yeah.
was doing that, and that's because he lost a was
A
it a
bet
bet
before.
with Thor. So Thor is a bit of a mischievous god too, in the sense, because he knows what his brother. I think it shows you the dynamic between the two.
Yeah,
Thor know that there's certain things that he can't do because that's not expected of him. You know, he's not supposed to do that, but he knows that's right up Loki's alley. So therefore, he'll egg him on to do it, and then poor Loki will get in trouble for it as usual.
yeah.
But again, it goes to the purpose of what Loki likes, which is he gets the attention. So
Yeah.
Thor still gets to be, the good child, the favorite child, and Loki gets what he craves, which is attention. He go, oh, for God's sake, Loki, you've gone and dressed up as Abraham Lincoln again. Why? Why, Loki?
Yeah, I
Go to
think
your room,
that's the thing, is, I think Thor loves Loki as his brother, but at the same time,
Yeah, yeah.
Thor is fully aware of what Loki can do as well. But there was an interesting bit as well where Mobius kind of says to Loki, "You exist to make others better," which again is all about
Which
his
is,
identity, isn't
yeah.
it? It's kind
It
of
says it
saying,
from it did that did happen in the first Avengers movie.
yeah,
Remember what Tony Stark said? He's like, "You've managed to do, you managed to literally piss off all of us and got us working together," type of
yeah,
thing. And it's so weird that that happened so long ago, and it's just come full circle now, where it does explain a lot. Like he says,
yeah,
like Mobius said, you do exist to actually make people be better. And
yeah,
it's sad that literally that is your only purpose. So your purpose is not that you will achieve great things, but no, because of your actions, you will let others achieve great things. So you will never get the credit, just like what we were talking about with Thanos. Thanos will never get the credit that he deserves or get the sympathy that he deserves, considering that everything that really happened to him, in theory, was done by the timekeepers because they knew exactly what he was going to do, what he's been through, and they allowed him to go and do all of that, because the fact that we now see that in theory that the Infinity Stones are nothing more than paperweight for the office guys,
yeah.
then it just goes to show that literally that they could have done all of that.
We're working on a different level of power now altogether.
Yeah, but again, it goes to show what we're saying, that you know some people are destined to be the heroes that will get all the, the Thors that will get the Avengers that will get all the praises, and they're heroes, and the ones who we class as the bad guys, if you really look at it in a sense, they're more the victims.
Yeah, in a way, yeah,
They're puppets that's
absolutely.
being controlled by these timekeepers that's doing all these things. Because like even now, the more we're talking about and the more I'm thinking about it, it was okay, and there was no punishment for Captain America to breach multiple time stream and still able to go back to his one and live a wonderful full life with the woman that technically he wasn't meant to grow old with, because once he
Or
crashed
maybe he
into that
was, according to the
ice,
TVA.
well, if he was, then they would have rectified that from the beginning, from back in
Maybe
the
maybe that's
40s
why
when he
they let him
crashed.
rectify it. It's all very confusing, and
Well, that's
it,
what I'm saying to you, Manipi. It means that they let that happen in order for him to be able to do what he needed to do in the future for them, because they don't want to get involved, which technically they could, because they're that powerful where they could go and just fix everything. Because it's quite clear that the Infinity Stones would not work on them. So they could go out and do all of that. Because if you look at it, when, those TVA agents, cops came and arrested Loki, she actually picked up the Tesseract
Yeah, and she was
just with her
fine.
glove.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
she
just
was
picked it
fine
up
with it.
like it was nothing and just went off with it. So it goes to show they could have done that at any time with all of them, but they chose not to. So it shows that that wouldn't have actually worked on them.
Yeah. So yeah, he's the Loki is the anomaly in all this. And again, maybe he was suddenly in a position where he's not making people's lives better anymore by being that kind of like bad guy who brings everyone together. Now it's time to step in. I hope this is very interesting, and I hope they explain this away properly and don't drop the ball on this.
Yeah, I think, yeah, but I mean, again, we'll have to wait till we finish up get further into this
Yeah,
discussion about what
yeah, and
happened
then
for me to, because I've got a take on why I think they want this Loki, Loki here, Loki who's naughty Loki who's here to do what they want him to do.
yeah,
I have a theory on why that is or whatever, but it's messed up. It's going to make you look at villains even differently now, in some situations, because now you know that there's a higher power, that the timekeepers who are able to basically right any wrongs that's happening in an instant if they see fit to do so. It makes you think that anything that happens, if there's suffering or anything that happens that shouldn't, that you think, oh my God, that's unjust. You
yeah.
can't just blame the bad guys. You can blame them, because at any point they could go and change that unless they
But
feel like they want things to happen,
and
to
isn't that
balance out the
and isn't that
universe.
life explained in general? Everybody is the hero in their own story.
Yeah, true, but most times people who are heroes and villains is because of situations that they cannot control. So they feel
Sometimes,
because
yeah,
there's no one else
absolutely.
to step involved, they have to do it. Whereas in this situation, we now know that there is someone
Who
who
can
could
step in?
actually step in and fix everything, but they choose not to. They choose to pick and choose when they will step in and when they will not step in, and on what terms they will step in on.
At the same time, I'm sure they will say the timekeepers are so powerful we can't comprehend um, their reasoning and their judgments
Well, we know right and wrong in on our level, and right and wrong is if you've got the power to actually
on our
end
level.
hunger and work, all the wars and everything else, and you chose not to, but you'll choose which wars you will end and which wars you won't end, then it's clear cut that you're just picking and choosing when you want to play
I
hero.
agree. I agree, but I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, 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 you agree. I'm just saying it's just the fact that now we know what they're about, Now
It's
we can't just look at bad guys as bad guys. We have to look at these lot who's in the shadows, these puppet masters
do you remember
as
when Loki said, I think he was in the first Avengers movie, that you know, I think he says to Samuel Jackson that you're just like an ant to me, or
yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah.
And now he's actually in a place where he's just an ant to them.
Yeah, and they're the boot.
Yeah,
Boot, meat, ant. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, again, we're on this next level of power now, and again, the affairs of mere mortals means nothing. Like, David, do you care about the beetle crawling about outside in your garden in Jamaica right now? Probably not. Unless
No,
it comes
probably
into the
not.
house and crawls up your leg. Probably
Yeah,
not.
probably not. But then at the same time, if I had the power where I could, like create and end lives and things like that, then it would be my responsibility to do the right thing, because it's not like these people operate on a mortal level where someone will know, oh, it's over there the guy lives that can actually fix time, so let me go and bother him, and they've got a multitude of people coming there every day asking for things. No one knows they exist, so they could go at any point and fix certain things, but they choose not to. They choose to let certain people be the heroes and certain people be the bad guy. But it seems like it's for their own amusement, in the sense
Yeah,
like, yeah, we just want to see. We created them for that anyway. So it's like it makes you question, it makes you question everything.
100%, 100%. So Then Loki goes back and he views the rest of his story, which so Elevator's Neddy's therapy because of this moment. But him watching his story, him watching his mum die, him watching himself, watching his mum die, watching Odin die, watching him being killed by Thanos. That was somehow more emotional watching him. Yeah, him watching him. That was somehow more emotional than actually watching the versions in the cinema.
Yeah, I think so, because now we're seeing it from, it's kind of like with anything. It's kind of like, for instance, like our shows like, like Games of Thrones or something like that, when we think, wonder what Ned Stark, how he would feel if he saw what became of his kids, after he died, if he was able to see just like that, and he's not able to, so you can only speculate. It was the same for us, you never know how Loki would have, we saw how he reacted, when his mom died, when he was locked up or whatever, we saw that he was hurt by it. But at that point, you could kind of see the change in him anyway, that he was kind of changing at that point. He wasn't the villainous Loki like what this version of him is supposed to be. This is when he's in full peak villain. He's like complete nightmare Loki. There's no redeeming quality about him. This is him trying to conquer the world Loki. But deep down, you got to saw when he faced with that and he saw what he became and what he lost, that it actually killed him. And I think it more killed him not about his death. I think it killed him that he died and he wasn't able to get the approval and the affection that he really wanted from his parents.
Maybe. I think for him,
more so from the parents than his brother.
What I interpreted from that was he watches that and he sees actually he can be a good person. And, in the last, when Odin dies, he is there with his brother and he's there as his brother's equal when Odin dies. And, he calls both of them son, before he dies.
Yeah,
and,
my sons, yeah.
Yeah, and he sees himself being killed by Thanos and he's actually doing it for the greater good. So how we've talked about how Loki's this kind of character who can't find his identity. I think this was him kind of realizing, actually, I can be a good person, and actually, I was worrying about a lot of things which I didn't need to worry about because actually, I'm quite capable of doing good. My brothers messaged in for the future, i.e., Fantastic Four. How will Kang appear if you have the TVA round? Now we've actually covered this earlier, but Kang is due to be the main villain in the Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania movie. And Kate, you might actually have a better understanding of this than I do, because I really found Kang stories boring in the comics. But the judge in episode 1, who judges Loki, apparently in the comics, that's actually Kang's lover, she's still part of TVA in the comics as well. But she also becomes Kang's lover at some point as well. So I do think they're kind of, putting in those strong hints that Kang's going to be a very relevant member of the ICU, the MCU to come, not the intensive care unit, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, I think before this series is finished, there's going to be a few people in the ICU.
Maybe. And I'll tell you who might put them in there. Variant Loki. I think he'll be putting people in the ICU. So a few more things happen, but essentially we're taken to Oklahoma 1858 and we see a dark shrouded figure killing a few more TVA agents. Back to Mobius, who talks to Loki and is like, we need your help because there's a variant version of you going around just messing things up and potentially creating loads of new timelines, new universes. And yeah, it looks like whereas Loki's going to be the good guy of the program, Loki's actually going to be the bad guy of the program as well. That's kind of cool.
That's the thing, though. That's what I'm not 100% sure I believe that, in the sense that you know, this Loki, not variant, but you know, Asgard Loki, I don't think he will ever really be a good guy. He will never really be a bad guy either. I think he will always kind of be Loki. You know, he'll do good things. He'll do not necessarily bad things. He'll just do Loki things. You know, like he'll come in and if he sees you think you're the big shot villain and whatever, he will come in and try and embarrass you and take you down because he wants the attention.
Yeah,
But he won't, in terms of be oppressive and want to rule and do all of that. No, that's not him. Because if you look at it, if you remember in Thor, when we found out, well, we knew it was him who was pretending to be Odin.
yeah,
When he was there, you look at it, he wasn't ruling with an iron fist or anything. He was just lazing about, just eating grapes and having them put on plays about what's happening.
100%. So my brother says it's possible that Loki will make alliances with other Lokis, which have been
Yeah,
created by this. I mean, where did this variant Loki come from as well? I mean, that's
yeah, from
another.
one of these other universe, like you know. And
Yeah,
is
but
this
apparently
variant
there's
Loki? Is it a male or a female Loki? You know,
absolutely absolutely in the but apparently there's only one sacred timeline. So where did this Loki? Is there another hidden timeline somewhere? I don't know. I'm very confused. I get very confused by timelines, by time travel
well, maybe,
stories. Very easy, I
well,
get
maybe,
confused.
well, maybe it all started from when the whole, um, maybe over the last 5 years when the Infinity Stones were used by Thanos. Maybe
Maybe.
that's when it started because that would have essentially changed timelines. So maybe that's when that Loki was able to do it.
Yep. Back onto Kang, because there are a lot of people that think Kang could end up being the big bad of this series as well. Kang, my brother thinks, is a distant relative of Reed Richards. He also went around making alliances with other Kangs throughout time and backstabbing them. So yeah, maybe they could like transfer some of the Kang stories onto Loki in this series as well, because they've essentially transferred a She-Hulk story regarding the TVA onto Loki in this first episode. So I think I think a lot could happen. The TVA showed many timelines running parallel. Did it? Because again I'm getting a bit confused because the way I worked it out was what they said was there's just like a main sacred timeline.
No, that's what I was saying to you, Manny.
Yeah.
Like there is in that main one,
Hmm.
it's kind of like, for instance, it's like I think the easiest way to do it is kind of like saying like the underground. You know, like the underground in the UK where the trains are. We know that it's just one underground, but you've
Yeah.
got
Got
different
different lines. Yeah,
lines. You've got
that's
yeah,
a
you've
good
got
analogy.
different
Yeah.
lines, but it's all on the one underground is the main thing. But I think that's what's happened. I think where they have the problem is when you get like Loki, who's now dropped out of time, who's then gone and created a different underground, not using their tunnels, but created his own tunnel. So because he's created his own tunnel now, it's like, you know, you've gone off radar. You're not supposed to be doing that. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to create your own tunnel. So we need you to get back in this tunnel and go on one of these lines and end how it should end.
Again, I get very confused very easily with time travel stories. I actually can't watch Back to the Future because, as great as the movie is, I just sit there going,
I've never watched it.
it's a great movie. They're great movies, all three of them, especially the first two. But I just sit there going, that bit doesn't make sense because if you'd done that, then surely that would affect that. And yeah, I just get very
Yeah, the
pernickety
butterfly
pernickety
effect.
about time travel movies. But the good thing is the MCU are trying their best to explain time travel properly, and actually did bring in quantum physicists during an end game to kind of explain to them this is how science says
Yeah,
it
the
should
theory,
work.
yeah, theories on what they would, how they possibly believe certain things. I think that's a great move, and that shows great initiative on Marvel's part to get experts from certain fields to come in to make your show, even though we know, okay, it's make believe, but to give it some kind of realistic point when you're
Yeah,
speaking of certain things. You know,
yeah,
like you said, like with the time travel and how certain even in technology or weapon, if you don't have someone who's an expert from that field who's able to actually, you know, interact and tell you this is which that would make sense, then it just makes it completely, null and void because
yeah, yeah,
it's not just regular folks like ourselves watching this. You're going to have people like these that they're bringing in, the quantum physicists, nuclear experts, people of that nature going to be watching these films. And just like anything, it would be like yourself because of your line of work, or like me when when I did aviation. When I see certain scenes in a film, like if it's they're showing an airport and you see someone who arrives at the airport 10 minutes before the flight takes off and you see them run into the plane or whatever.
yeah,
Me, from my background, I know that is not realistic because you can't get through security because you've got X amount of time that you need to get through security. Your boarding
yeah.
pass won't work. You would have been taken off the flight. So when you see certain things and okay, from my background, because I know what it's about, there's no credibility in what you're saying. So I think it's amazing when they do bring experts in from certain fields that you're covering in that film will actually give it credibility because they'll be able to say, okay, yes, we know it's a movie, but or it's a series, but
Yeah.
this is how that would work, and you actually incorporate that actual factual knowledge into your script for the character, and it makes sense. And it makes sense when you use a character who, in theory, is an expert in that field. So it wouldn't make sense if you have someone like a Bucky trying to explain to you like quantum
Yeah,
physics,
yeah,
physics or something, because that's not what he's about.
yeah,
He's more of
yeah,
a military guy.
yeah. And in
So
the movies, they've used the two best people to explain it. So you've had
exactly,
Bruce
Tony
Banner explain it
Stark
from a
and
scientific
Bruce
level,
Banner.
and then you had
Yeah,
the ancient one explain it from a kind of magical, spiritual level.
yeah.
So those were the two best people placed to
No, but just even
explain.
in general, like, do you remember the interaction? I think it was in Avengers with between Bruce Banner and Tony Stark when he went
Sorry,
and
that's
he was
somebody on a motorcycle speeding past my house.
and he was speaking about, he was reading, like he read a whole book on like quantum physics or something along
Yeah,
that line. But he actually read something on that line and they were there communicating and everyone else could not understand a word of what they're saying. But between the two of them, it was like, oh my
yeah, they
God,
were
yes, oh yeah, oh, of course that makes sense. And no one else could understand. So it's perfect to actually have realistic information based on whatever you're actually trying to do or whatever subject they're discussing from an expert point of view. It's good that they actually have actual experts out there who the studios use for dialogue, who will actually put that into the script that will make it relatable
100%.
because
So
that's how you get more fans and you don't
yeah,
lose fans.
and it takes you, and if things don't make sense, it takes you out of it, and you don't what. This is why I can't watch WWE at the moment because the storylines make no sense, and it takes me out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to bring up something quickly as well. So my nephew's he's got a master's in theoretical physics. Just thought I'd drop that in there. But I went to go and watch Ant-Man 2 with him in the cinema. And there's a scene where they go to visit Bill Foster, who's a physicist as well, doing a lecture at university.
Yeah.
And my nephew actually told me all the equations he's got written up on the board are all actually equations which he knows and recognizes, and like and makes sense to him. And he's like come across doing his like degree in they didn't have to do it because 99.9% of people will just look at the equations and be like, I don't know if it's real or not, but somebody actually took out the time to do like, no, we're going to get a physicist in and actually put actual proper like equations up there.
Yeah, but that's what we're just talking about because, like we said, the fan base isn't just us comic book fans who, used to watch the comics and the cartoon series. You're going to have people who were comic book fans who watched the series who then grew up and became expert in certain fields based off which sometimes your career path and choice is based off things like you like. Like you'll have parents who name their kids from their favorite, comic book characters or movie characters because it had an impact on them. So just like how you may see a Tony Stark who's like a tech expert, you may have someone who, because of that, who was watching it as a kid, will grow up and want to become a tech expert. Now, when you see said tech expert on TV explaining something about technology, and it's not making any sense in the real world, like none of the information what he's saying is realistic, it will
No,
just make you think like, oh God, like, stop it, like you don't want to watch it. Like for instance, that movie Flight with Denzel
no.
that came out, the one where he's a pilot who supposed he flew the plane upside down, literally a commercial plane upside
Okay.
down, and you had like experts coming out and saying that's impossible. You
Yeah.
can't fly a commercial plane like that type of thing. And it goes to show when they don't actually take the time out to actually get the proper information and advice from actual experts in those fields, they'll make things that will look good for the screen, but there's no
Yeah.
substance
Yeah,
behind it.
visually it's great, but it's insulting your intelligence at the same time. So yeah, but that was the end of Loki. I thought it was a really good episode. I think, as the point was made earlier, it's probably the best debut episode of all the Marvel series so far. I think it really gave itself a decent base as to where it's going to go on from the future. What do you see coming up in the
Yes,
next
that's
couple of episodes?
what I see, or what I've learned over the last
So,
few
how many will name
movies.
their kids Loki for being mischievous? It's a good
Oh,
point. I
I'll be
mean,
surprised. There'll be many, many folks. There's probably many Lokis out there. I mean, remember, there's plenty of Loki people with Loki tattoos and stuff like that. So if you can get a tattoo, you can get a name too, because they're both for life.
yeah. Kate, you probably should have named. She probably should have named Nikki Reed Richards. Thinking about it now. But yeah, sorry, there you go.
Well, like I said, what I've come to realize over the last few, the movies, when you look at things from a different perspective, like Thanos, his reasoning behind doing certain things, and again, what's his name? John Walker.
Hmm.
It's John Walker, isn't
Yeah,
it?
US agent. Yeah,
Second, yeah, U.S. agent slash the second Captain America. You get to understand things from a different perspective, just like we did with Isaiah Bradley. You get to see certain things, and you say, okay, wow, so it's not exactly as clear cut as it's made out to be. So, what I'm getting from this is we've known, like we were talking about earlier, saying that Loki is very intelligent.
hmm,
We know that this Loki is very intelligent. Maybe the other Lokis are just as intelligent or maybe more intelligent than him.
possibly.
Now, what if the reason why Loki is this renegade variant who's out there causing serious harm to these the timekeepers timeline, sacred timeline, is because Loki knows something about the timekeepers that we don't know already. As
Possibly.
in he knows a hidden agenda, i.e., what they're really about or what their real intentions is, and he's trying to do something about it. Because if you look at the interesting part of that episode, right,
So maybe
the end,
maybe he wants to return destiny to people.
probably because if you look at it, right, I think there's something serious going on that we don't know yet. If you look at it, when after he killed those TVA officers,
Yep.
right? Remember, there was one of them, he was trying to crawl behind like that reset thing, which
Mhm.
means if he probably had resetted that, they would have all been okay. That's what I'm probably thinking, which is why he was so desperate trying to
Yeah.
touch it. If he had done that, none of them would have died and, everything would have been okay. Which again, that's another interesting, you know, theory that possibly if you get injured in that time, once you do the reset, anything that happens to you because it wasn't supposed to happen, you'll be okay. So you could have lost an arm, a leg, about to die, but once you hit that reset and everything goes back to how
Yeah.
it should be, then you're no harm, no fouls done to you. However, he wasn't able to do it, so therefore that happened. They all died. But if you notice, what did he do? He could have left it there, considering they're dead, right? Which means that even if someone else came, they wouldn't have been able to do anything to save them, because I think you'd probably theorizing it, probably those who are in that time space at the time. So, i.e., you and I went back there to do whatever. One of us is injured, but because it's you and I who's there, if I'm able to press that reset button, we're both okay. But if we both die, anyone else that comes in there, they cannot do anything to actually revert that. So if you notice, he could have left that, considering that everyone was dead. He had killed all of them, but he didn't leave it. He took it up.
To be honest, I don't
He
know.
went
I'm
off with it.
confused.
No, remember, he saw the end of it. You know, after he killed that guy, he took it up and he went away with it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
No.
wonder, there must be a reasons, and if that's the case, you know that he's been killing them. He's been killing those TVA cops. That means probably for each one of those he's been killing, maybe he's been collecting those little time reset, those time bombs, I'll call them for now. I like that. Those time bombs, he's been collecting them for a reason. Maybe he's going to create his own
that's a
version
good point,
of a big
actually.
bang, a big bang to erase those timekeepers, something.
Maybe. So
I'm not going to call him a bad guy just yet. I'm going to wait and see.
That's smart. Let's see how it plays out. Maybe the TVA are the bad guys and we just haven't realized it yet.
Well, so far, I think that they are not just the agents. I think that the timekeepers are the bad guys, because the fact that they are the ones who's in charge of it, and they give the power to their TVA office, corporate guys, who's got the Infinity Stones as paperweight, but they didn't take the Infinity Stones from Thanos before he destroyed half the galaxy, when they could have, because by them collecting it from Loki with their hands, when no one else could pick it up with their hands, these guys was able to pick it up with their hand and
next
bring it
level
back
power
to the office as if it's nothing. It means they could have done that at any time, which means that there's something else going on that maybe Loki knows about and we don't know, which means that they're trying to use him. The reason why I think they're trying to use him to do this is because he's more important than he knows, but they're just not telling him what he's really capable of.
Potentially. I think you're onto something there. I think there's a lot which they're not telling Loki, and
and why they need him, because think about it, they're powerful Manipi. They could do just about anything. Why would you need him to come and stop himself?
Exactly. And what is it about this variant Loki that makes him so powerful that he can take out TVA officers, police, or agents, wherever they are, but our Loki can't do that?
Yeah, the more I'm thinking about it now, the more it's like kind of like making sense in my own head, because you look at it when they're playing, like you said, when he was doing that therapy session, it's like he wasn't telling him he's a bad guy. It's like he's more trying to get him to see, yes, you're not a bad guy, you're a good guy. And when someone is trying to convince you of something, it's usually because they're trying to keep you away from finding out something they don't want you to find out.
Yeah, potentially. Spoken like a true sociopath, Davian.
Yeah, there you go. That's it, Loki. I'm with you. You out there, get them back. Get them back for the John Walkers and the Thanoses out there that lost their planet, lost their people. Get used to destroy the universe and then get his head chopped off.
Okay, so for me, yourself and my brother have explained to me, because again, I'm rubbish with timelines, with time travel stories. Terrible. This little pea brain of mine just can't process time travel stories. Really bad. And then Avengers Endgame is my favorite movie of all time. So, hey ho, stop showing off your nipples.
I'm showing off the Vaya.
Oh right, sorry.
Vaya gear.
So I think in the next episode we're essentially going to see Loki being tasked with trying to chase this variant Loki, and we're going to see Loki not just maybe popping up in different moments in time, but different timelines as well, potentially, and meeting other types of Lokis. As my brother said, maybe this Loki is meeting other Lokis in other timelines and trying to get them on board, or maybe he's actually sapping their power to give himself more power. Something like that potentially I can see happening. I can see now a bit of a quantum. What was that program called?
Quantum Leap.
That's it. Thank you. Quantum Leap. It's going to be a bit like Quantum Leap, I think, the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is be aware or be wary of the TVA.
Yeah.
Because in theory, they work for the timekeepers, which means anything they're doing is for the best interest of the timekeepers and their own agenda. So nothing they're doing is for Loki or for the universe, because if they were about the universe and everyone in the universe, then nothing that Thanos did would have happened. They wouldn't have allowed it to happen. The fact that they said they know everyone's life from start to end, they knew exactly what was going to happen in terms of Thanos, what he was going to do. Yet they still allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
Both versions of Thanos. So therefore, I don't trust them, and I think there's a reason they're trying to get Loki on board. And also, I think it will be interesting if they will try, if the chance comes up for Loki to meet that variant Loki, if they will allow that meeting, because if they won't allow that meeting, then it will be bang on exactly what I said. They're afraid of him finding out something they don't want him to know about them, because he's not stupid. So therefore, we don't know if Loki having mind control powers. So you wouldn't prevent him from meeting the other Loki because of, oh, Loki's got mind control over, abilities. The only way you would stop him is because even though Loki is mischievous, he doesn't necessarily lie. He tells mischievous lies, but when push comes to shove, he's not going to tell lies with certain things. He told you he wanted to conquer X, Y, Z. So I think it will be interesting if they allow him, if the opportunity comes for the variant Loki to meet Asgard Loki. Will they permit?
I'm sure that will happen at some point, maybe sooner than we think. But God, we've nearly done an hour and 3/4, so I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
Yes, and I want to say, one, check out the gear. Let us know your feedback. Gonna put some photos up on the Instagram page for y'all to tell us what you think of the demo project P. That's what I call it.
Did you like that? That was seamless as well. You mentioned Instagram, and I put the banner up as soon as you said it.
Yeah, awesome. So we're gonna do that, and also want to, yes, because it's a birthday today for our youngest subscriber. It's the lovely Penny's son's birthday.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so baby T, happy first birthday from
happy
the
first
Bayman.
Birthday, baby T.
Yes. Make sure you tell all your baby friends to like, share, and subscribe as well.
To be fair, these babies are better at the internet than we are, so they've probably already done it.
Exactly. So yes, and let us know what you guys, what you and your baby friends take are of Loki and what the agendas of the TVA is. So yes, and that's it for me really. But thank y'all. We'll see you soon.
Where's my hand? There it is. Bye.
Yes.